Hi Year 10, it's just Mrs. Truman again. In my last video I mentioned I would come back to our big question and show how that again links into an exam question, because I think it's really important for you to see that process and why we do big questions. So the big question that we were looking at in my last video is, how does Shakespeare present the role of the supernatural and witchcraft in Macbeth? Now, if you haven't watched that, it would be advisable to watch that video before we do this, because I'm not going to go over this again, all right? However, we are going to use what we have addressed on the big question to help us plan a response, and then I'm going to do a follow-up video, which is ultimately how to begin to write a response. So, with this big question in mind, okay, the exam question that I've focused on today is this one here. And it states, just at the bottom, I'll try and zoom in, is, starting with this extract, how does Shakespeare present the idea of the supernatural? Okay, so again, I'm just going to highlight key points to the question and that idea of the supernatural. And then the question talks about, how does Shakespeare present the idea of the supernatural in the extract and the supernatural in the play as a whole, okay? I am going to address the play as a whole secondly, because again, that links to our big question yesterday. So we are now going to come to the extract. As with all exam questions, and I spoke about this when we did the last one, you will always get the context of the question at the top. And in this instance, it says, read the following extract from Act 4, Scene 1. Again, that's important because it allows you to consider what's come before this question and ultimately what may follow. Sorry, this scene, not question, and what will follow. And then it says, at this point in the play, Macbeth is asking the witches questions about their prophecies. Now, what we need to do to understand this is think about, well, actually, what's happened before this? Now, we know ultimately what has happened before Act 4, Scene 1 is Act 3, and we know in Act 3 that Macbeth has ordered the murderers to kill Banquo. As a result of that, when he's at the banquet, he sees Banquo's ghost. And he certainly shows some guilt there, as he seems to kind of appear in this unstable state and this unstable mind. Now, at this point, it's worth noting that actually this is the first point when Macbeth has approached the witches. Like we spoke about when we addressed the big question, previous to this in Act 1, on the way home from battle, Macbeth and Banquo basically kind of came across the witches as if the witches were almost waiting for them. In this instance, he has approached them. Now, that's quite significant because obviously that does show how he is now almost given himself over to them. It's almost that he feels like he needs to go and see them for the next direction in life, almost appearing a little bit that he might have lost who his was in his own direction, and certainly that is quite obvious through the play. Okay, now once you've addressed the context, the next point would be to read the extract. Now, what I thought would be useful for you when I did this video is actually to show you how I would approach it. Last time I did it prior and then I talked us through it. I thought it would be useful to have a reading of the extract and actually show how you would approach the planning of the question whilst that is done. Okay, so I do have an audio reading just to save me doing three things at once, because I'm holding the camera and a highlighter, and then I would have to read as well and highlight, so it just kind of saves me a job there. So the audio will play straight away, okay, and then I'll take you through how I would approach the question.
Enter Hecate to the other three witches.
Oh, well done. I commend your pains, and every one shall share in the games. And now about the cauldron sing, live elves and fairies in a ring, enchanting all that you put in.
Music and a song, black spirits, etc. Hecate retires.
By the pricking of my thumbs, something wicked this way comes. Open locks, whoever knocks.
Enter Macbeth.
How now, you secret black and midnight hags? What is't you do?
A deed without a name.
I conjure you, by that which you profess, howe'er you come to know it, answer me, Though you untie the winds and let them fight against the churches, though the yeasty waves confound and swallow navigation up, though bladed corn be lodged and trees blown down, though castles topple on their warders' heads, though palaces and pyramids do slope their heads to their foundations, though the treasure of nature's germans tumble all together, even till destruction sicken, answer me to what I ask you.
Speak.
Okay, so you can see from there that as it was reading, I've then highlighted any relevant quotations that I feel link to the question. And actually, that's what I'm going to take you through now. Now, what we always try and advise you to do is choose quotations where you can say a lot about. And you can see I've highlighted quite a lot there. I'm not going to use all of them. All right, what I need to do is to be quite savvy and actually choose the quotations that I'm then going to be able to explain in detail and ultimately analyse in detail. So the first, I suppose most obvious one is this one here, where it's by the pricking of my thumb, something wicked this way comes. Now, first of all, we need to look at this verb here of pricking, okay? So again, as always, try and make relevance to the language or structural use which is used, okay? And this verb, the idea that they're pricking